Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Founders Grit. This is Armagan with you. And today we have Chris Rawlings from Sophie Society. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how's it going, man? Good to be
Doing
here.
really well. Thank you for being here. So, Chris, tell us about what you do. How did you end up founding a company called Sophie Society? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but yeah, give us a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I actually began in the sciences, not in business at all.
Oh, okay.
Growing up obsessed with the universe and what things are made of and stuff like that. I went to school for engineering and then switched over to physics and majored in physics in school.
Physics.
Graduated with a degree in physics and went into uh solar electrical design in the renewable
Okay.
space,
Hmm.
place where I could make a difference. But then realized once I got in there that I had wasted a lot of time. Not wasted, but um, I realized that only having technical knowledge doesn't allow you to control your own destiny as a man or as a person, as a man or a woman. And
Okay.
that skills with people and skills with complexity and complex structures and organizations like companies, um, like nonprofits, like lobby
Hmm.
organizations, like governments, whatever. Understanding how people organizations work and people systems, not just solar systems and galaxies and atoms.
Yeah.
That was the key to controlling your own destiny, and also the key to being able to have and make impact in the world. And so once I graduated and I was working in the solar industry, kind of taking the design jobs that come on my desk, seeing the engineers that were like 10 years down the road from where I was and not wanting to be in the place they were. I just went on a journey to learn the art of business through the school of hard knocks, since I didn't have a business degree or any experience at all. And not even that much experience with just people in general. I'd spent a lot of my time just face buried in books. Um, you
Okay.
know, yeah.
Interesting. Okay,
So
so
yeah,
uh, my apologies, I'm cutting you off, but I'm just really intrigued by what you said. You said that you
sure.
started off in the sciences, you spent a lot of time with physics, books, and then you realized, oh, if you want to have more control over your own destiny, you gotta learn to deal with people and figure out how
Right.
people work rather than like atoms. And I understand that understanding atoms is important, but understanding people is also important. But my question is, okay, what made this discovery come to you? Like, were you just sitting on the desk,
Yeah,
and one day you
basically.
have, oh, okay,
Yeah, I was essentially sitting at my desk taking the design jobs that come through my desk and just sitting with headphones on all day doing design work. But in the industry, in the solar industry that I was in,
mhm,
I could see that the people who were charting the course of the industry and charting the course of their own lives were the developers. And the developers in the solar industry, those are the business guys. That's
okay,
what in Hollywood
mhm.
would be called the producer. In the
Okay,
startup world would be called the founder. They're the
okay,
guys who put together the deal, you know, and
hmm,
those were the guys that I saw were doing it. And so I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to do what those guys do.
interesting. Okay, so because you mentioned developers, and I was like, my mind, being an engineer, I was like, oh, you mean software developers? Like they are the ones doing it?
Right. No, there's a
But
very
no,
different type
yeah,
of
yeah, it's a
developer.
different lingo
Yeah.
here.
In the solar industry, the developer is the person that puts together the project. They get the landowner,
Mm,
they get the construction company that can create the solar, they get the permits from the municipal government that allow them to do the project. They get the financier who's going to fund
okay.
the project. They put it all together and then boom, they make a project happen. They make something out of nothing. They turn an empty landfill into power producing,
Into a power
clean energy
producing clean
producing solar
energy.
field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And those
Okay.
were the guys I wanted to be like. So then I started, trying to get into business. And I was lucky enough to have an opportunity in the company I was in to basically start a division, an offshoot of the company, a child company or
Hmm.
a sister
Yeah.
company of that company. Had my girlfriend make the logo, started making deals. And these were like big projects. It wasn't like what I later turned into the e commerce world as, dozens of or hundreds of orders a day. It was like one order every 3 weeks or every few months, but it's like a $750,000 order.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah,
it was
big
in
thing.
solar manufacturing. So I cut my teeth there with no equity in that company until I realized, okay, I'm ready to go out there and do this on my own. And then I started my first brand, my first online brand. And long story short, it was a spinal health products company. And
Mhm.
I had a spinal injury from being in a rock and roll band, which that's part of the story I didn't tell you about, but I was
Please
in a ska band.
elaborate. Please
Yeah.
elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. So I'll send you some links, but it was
Mhm.
called the Waffle Stompers, and we played ska music, which is like fast reggae. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
with
interesting.
horns, trombone and trumpet and stuff. But I played bass in this band. It's a very nerdy type of genre
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
play,
I'm
and
figuring it out. I'm
it's
trying to
not
imagine
cool.
it in my head.
Yeah, it's not the coolest type of band. But it's a lot of fun live. So I'd actually had a spinal injury from being in a band and also doing solar projects when I was younger.
Okay.
And I decided to use that experience to create spinal health products, home spinal health products, and sell them online and mostly on Amazon. So sold them on Amazon. Used my own design background and design experience to design my own versions of the products in AutoCAD,
Mm, okay.
and got them produced and built a business out of it. And I grew that business to a 7-figure multinational spinal health products brand in the span of 18 months.
Ooh,
And that is the company that led me to Sophie Society.
okay.
After that experience, I actually moved to Silicon Valley. Um, I raised a round of funding for a software company to help other brands launch their products. It was called Judo Launch.
Judo
Um,
launch. Okay.
yeah, and that was an interesting experience, seeing the difference between the bootstrapped world that's very connected to reality and the bottom line and profit,
Yeah.
to the Silicon Valley world, which is totally disconnected, way in the sky, no care whatsoever about profit or the bottom line. $10 million valuations on a startup that's nothing but a white paper idea, all kinds of crazy stuff. And yeah, I experienced that. I went through one of the top tech accelerators there called 500 Startups.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
while I was out there, I co-founded a crypto fund called 22X Fund. It's 22xfund.com. And
Hmm.
we raised a couple $1 million from crypto investors
Ooh.
for this fund. And I really lived the Silicon Valley life for the short time I was out there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm realizing.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I'd kept all the crypto that I had when I was out there
You
because,
should have. You
man,
should have.
oh, seriously. That I feel like that's everyone's story. But yeah, that eventually led me to create Sophie Society, which is the venture that is currently my number one focus.
Mhm.
It's an all remote team. We have 15 full time employees all over the world in the US, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and even one or two in Asia.
Okay.
And what we do is we provide content for Amazon sellers listings. So we provide the photo, the listing copy, the keyword research, all the
Mhm.
design to make a high converting Amazon listing. And we do Amazon PPC management, so Amazon advertising management. So sellers that sell on Amazon, we manage their ads to get them the most possible traffic from Amazon, and the most possible sales. And
Okay.
that's what I'm doing now.
Interesting. So it's something, it's some sort of a marketing company, but very specific for Amazon sellers.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Very
So
specific to Amazon sellers. Yep.
the only question which comes to mind is you went to the Silicon Valley, you had all these experiences with crypto and whatnot. Why come back to Amazon with the spine, like something similar to the spinal cord, the spinal, what do you call,
Spinal health
yeah, the
products.
spinal health products you made. So why come
Yeah.
back to Amazon?
I'll tell you
Whoa.
the honest reason is that I was growing this tech company that made software for Amazon sellers. That was the company called Judo Launch. At the
Okay.
same time, raising that crypto fund. And I just experienced a really epic failure. I raised
Oh.
millions of dollars in
Mhm.
funding. I was taking that high growth, net loss with the burn down period, Silicon Valley growth route, grew the company to like 45 people, and doing 7 figures, but losing tons of money on the bottom line every month, reliant on raising more investor capital to grow it. And just for the space that I was in, it was not the right route. And we ended up in a position of weakness where we basically, because of this high growth route that we were on, we needed to continually raise capital. And so I started taking money from people that I shouldn't have, and people that I didn't trust, and people that didn't fit with the culture of my company and didn't align with my vision for the company. And that created a lot of friction, and it created a lot of tension and a lot of conflict. And so that company ended up actually becoming the victim, you could say, of a hostile takeover by one of those investors. The company was taken over. The name was completely changed to something else. I was kicked out completely, even though I was the founder. No, it was actually a great experience because I learned a ton from it. I felt like I got spit out of a tornado at that point. So decided that my next company was going to be something that was sustainable, that grew in an exciting but healthy way. And that's what Sophie's been. In the last 10 months, we've quadrupled in revenue, quadrupled in size.
Amazing.
And we should triple in the next 8 to 10 months again, if we continue the trend that we're already on.
Tripling, slowing down, is that, Chris? So unfortunate.
I know, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to do it the healthy way this time. Like the growth is still exciting, but we're not like 10xing every year, or 100xing every year like you'd expect from a company like Airbnb or one of these other Silicon Valley darlings. We're growing profitably. The company is profitable. It doesn't lose money. It doesn't depend on money from investors. It's got a healthy net margin.
That's actually a great thing, because depending on investors, one gets tied down, and then your vision or your goal or the culture you want to keep for a company that you found, it starts chipping away because you have to give a bit more control to the investors, and then it just becomes hosh-posh.
And some investors don't want that control. They're very passive. And I have some of my previous investors that are still backing me up. I still stay in contact with them, still have a very healthy relationship with them. And they're interested in putting money into the companies and ventures that match my ideals and aren't trying to take it over. So I wouldn't say raising money is a bad thing. My experience with Judo Launch is kind of a horror story because I tried to do it too fast and I had some hard lessons to learn. Like, don't take money from someone you don't trust, or don't take money from someone who doesn't match your vision and your company culture. But I do think raising capital is a great way to grow, especially if you have investors that are value add, that are well known in the industry, or have invested in other companies that succeeded and can help you with exit when it comes time to exit, or can help you with growth strategies or resources. Those are great people to have on your side. And if you have a way to use that capital to grow, good for you. That's great. Right now, we're just growing on retained earnings and we're not relying on investors, but I'm not closed off to it. And in the future, we may decide to take that route.
So you talk about investors and what kind of investors you should stay away from, and what kind of capital would be good capital to raise. Could you give our viewers a few tips on what are some red flags in your experience which a CEO or a founder should be aware of when approached by investors?
I would say if it's somebody who's just like there are different types of investors. They fall into a couple buckets. So there's VCs, venture capitalists. Those are firms that invest in startups, and usually they're investing in a startup that already has business in some way. Typically that's not always the case, but typically they're doing Series A, Series B, Series C, Series D rounds. These are
Something with
rounds of
like
funding
traction
for,
already.
yeah, with like the company already has product market fit, already has
Okay.
a some kind of traction going. But then before that, they're what's called angel investors.
Yeah.
Those are individuals. They're usually the ones that will take a big enough risk to invest in a company before they even have traction. When they're still an idea, or when they just got started and just started making a couple sales, they're still a very small team. And then there's micro VCs that are kind of between angels and venture capitalists.
Okay.
And then there are also other sources of capital that don't even fall into those standard buckets, like family offices. Family offices are high net worth families or individuals
Yeah.
where they have like an organization just to distribute the family's wealth. University endowments, even those usually go
Oh,
to the funds
really?
that then
University
go to
endowment.
the, yeah, I mean, universities have their own accelerator programs, their own funds now, but a lot of times they put their capital into VCs that then put the capital into
Okay.
to startups. But yeah, so you want to look for investors that align with you, and it's a red flag if it's someone who has an experience in a totally different realm and they have no experience in anything close to your realm, because they'll think that you're making the wrong decisions when you're actually making the right decisions, because their internal wiring is
Could be
wired
different.
for success in this other industry. Like if you got an
Mm-hmm.
oil guy and he
Yeah.
made all his money in oil, but he thinks Silicon Valley is all sex and he wants to invest in a new app, a new social media
Yeah.
app, he's going to think you're making bad
Not the
decisions,
expert.
even if
Yeah.
they're good. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of tension there, and that could end up causing issues. And I don't think it's common what happened to me. I really got an extremely bad apple. I mean, the people I was dealing with, some of them are actually under investigation by the DEA right
Oh,
now. So not the DEA, the District Attorney
the
of
yeah, yeah.
Manhattan. So they're extremely bad people, it turns out.
Okay.
But I mean, that's just kind of unlucky. Normally you'll just have infighting, tension that erodes your culture, and some of your control can be taken away as well the further you go along down that route.
Interesting. Okay. So uh, I know that we don't have enough time, but we want to go just a bit into how remote working and how COVID-19 changed things up for you guys at
Yeah,
Sophie.
yeah. Yeah, that was big. So it's a big deal for us. I mean, specifically, COVID-19 was actually really good for our business
Mhm.
because it accelerated e-commerce.
Yep.
As weird as that sounds,
Yeah, yeah,
it actually, it made more people shop on Amazon and more people want to sell on Amazon. So it was
yeah.
actually beneficial to us. It was actually an accelerator for us in our whole industry. Really interesting that that's how it went down. But in terms of remote working, yeah, actually all of my companies have been remote except for that first one, the solar company, which was in New Jersey. My first brand was remote. Judo launch was remote, all 45 staff. And now currently Sophie is a remote team, and I love it. We have retreats each year,
Oh, nice.
where the company gets together and we chart our yearly vision and our quarterly vision. But most of the time our office is Slack, Asana. So Slack, for those of you that don't know, it's
Yeah.
like a digital office. There are
Yeah,
different
yeah, yeah.
channels where you can communicate, you can message different people.
Mhm,
Asana is how we keep everything organized.
mhm.
Asana is a project management software. For those
Yeah,
of
the
you that
project
don't know, you
management
can
app.
create processes in it, assign tasks to people, have different teams, have projects with project specs and all of that. And then all of our documentation and information is stored in Google Drive in the form of Google Docs, Google Sheets, presentations, and things of that nature. And that's all that matters. I WhatsApp my top commanders because WhatsApp is like my bat phone, and I have like hundreds of fucking Slack channels that come up. So WhatsApp is kind of like my bat phone. Um, Facebook Messenger is how I communicate with external people, or Skype, people external to my organization.
Yeah.
And of course there's email, but my assistant is usually monitoring that and keeping that slim for me. I really hate email.
We all do. Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris. I understand that you have to run, but thanks again for coming. If you have any last pieces of advice for our
Yeah.
viewers, it would be
Yeah,
a
totally.
time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would say, so some of the benefits of remote working are, it's seen as a benefit to your team and your employees because you are granting them freedom. You know, they have the ability to go wherever they want. And now that's a lot more common because of COVID. Before COVID,
Yeah.
it was more of a perk. Now it's kind of almost expected. But it's hard because you don't have that in-person collaboration that can create magic. And that's why we just found out that we really needed to get together and work in person together sometimes to facilitate that magic, so to speak. Um,
Mhm.
but it is effective for those of you out there that are not sure if it would work or not. It's a very effective way to run a company if you have the right tools, and it is seen as a benefit to the employees.
Mhm.
And yeah, the other thing is you can get really highly qualified people for,
From different
depending on
parts
where
of the
you
world.
are, a much cheaper price. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in America, labor, skilled labor,
Yeah.
it's very expensive.
It's
And in
very
other
expensive.
places like Switzerland, if you're living in one of these places, America, Switzerland, some parts of Western Europe, you have really expensive skilled labor. Whereas places like Eastern Europe, parts of Asia, like the Philippines, a lot of our
Yeah.
staff is in Romania, Lithuania, Ukraine. You can pay very good wages that are still much more affordable to
Mhm.
the company than someone in America or Western Europe.
Yeah,
So
and
we
it
still have
works
people in
out
America
for
and
everyone.
Western Europe. Yeah, exactly. It works out for everyone. Yeah, it's good for everyone. So it makes sense.
True. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Take care.
For sure. Thanks for having me, bro.
No worries. Bye bye.